All right, man. So, what's up, dude?
What's
How
going
are
on?
you? Not bad, not bad. So, what are we going over today?
Um, Usually the ICP test and get your thoughts how I can try to fix it. Because as you can see, I mean it's hard to see, but I got a lot of growth on my softies, but
Hmm.
my sticks are not really growing
They're
in
not
the next
growing.
about a year.
Okay. Um, I'm actually going to move the screen around so I can check out your ICP test. So, when did you submit this? I see sample date 7/15, and then you got it 7/26. Okay. So you said that your soft corals are growing fine, but your sticks are not.
Yeah,
What lighting do you have on that?
I have
Trying to.
three Neptune skies.
Okay, great. Did you end up doing any kind of par on that tank yet?
No, I don't have
No.
a hard meter. I thought
Okay.
I'd buy one, but I tried to find through the local fish hobbies, but I can't find somebody that has one.
Okay. I know that bulk resupply, I'm pretty sure they still do the renting. I think it's like $50, and then I think there's like a deposit or whatever.
Right.
And then if you don't return it, obviously they're going to bill you for the whole thing. But I'm pretty sure they still do that. The other option is a Senai Reef. I don't know if you've ever used one of those. I think I've done a video on it too, but it's under $100, and I actually make a 3D printed handle for it. But it has a built-in par meter, and it gives you really good close reference ranges of where your par is at. So when it comes to growing SPS, it's important to figure out where the par levels are within your reef tank first,
Right.
because that kind of it gives you a better indication. Say, you know, let's say down the road you have like a coral that's like really browning out. It's kind of on the bottom. Your
Yeah.
nutrients are check, and then you can be like, oh well, I only have 50 par right there. I should probably relocate that SPS. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that would be the first thing I would do before you start diving into too much. But you said your soft corals are growing pretty good.
Oh yeah, I got mushrooms, my duckins, gonies are growing just fine.
Okay. Let's see here. I will admit I looked at your ICP test real quick before we started just to kind of see if anything jumped out. I'm not seeing anything in red, but this is actually the first time I've looked at this type of ICP test. I usually see Triton or the ATI one. So this is my first time looking at this one. So just to confirm, did you see anything that when you first looked at it that jumped out at you that was wrong before as I'm kind of looking through myself?
Well, I know I think it's iron, bromine,
Okay.
uh, there's something else.
Iron. Okay.
Real,
Here.
it's showing nothing.
Showing nothing. Yep. Yeah. NA for nothing. NN not detectable. Okay. So yeah. Are you dosing any kind of like reef supplement, like Reef Fuel or Reef Plus, or any kind of aminos or anything like that to the reef tank?
The only thing I'm dosing is aqua power
Okay.
and Brightwell's um, photo liquid for the corals.
Okay. And I also see that a lot of your other stuff is zero as well, like a lot of things. What salt are you using right now?
It's the Ocean, but I wanted to try and switch to Brightwell's Nano salt.
Hmm.
So I got that in today, and I have automatic water change set up where it does 3 gallons a day.
Okay, so it's the purple box Instant Ocean, not the reef crystals, right? Just to
Yes.
clarify. Okay,
Yep.
so I mean, maybe this, like I said, this is the first time I've looked at this ICP test. I'm seeing here at the bottom the reverse of the osmosis water. It says it measured calcium, potassium, magnesium, sodium, sulfur in the test. The reference range says, zero essentially.
Yeah.
Can you confirm that it actually is that what am I reading that correctly? Your RO water did pick up on
Yeah.
these elements. So, are you keeping your RO water in like a separate container that's outside of you mixing salt water in it?
So I have downstairs, I have two 100-gallon vats. One's my freshwater ATO.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is where I salt mix where the automatic water change flows from.
Okay.
And I have 8-stage RO system.
Okay.
Plus a whole house filtration.
Before that H stage. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you're changing your filters out on a schedule.
Yes.
The only reason why I ask is because there's got to be a reason why they're picking up on calcium, potassium, that kind of stuff in your RO water. So I was thinking maybe it's cross-contaminated if it's a barrel that you've mixed salt water in the past, or is it just a fresh water barrel that's never had?
It's well, yeah. The RO water. I used to use that for water changes because that's the only one I had at the time.
Okay. Now, was that a recent change from that container?
Probably about 3-4 months ago.
Okay. I'm only saying because it might be picking up on some stuff there. Now, this RO container, is it like food grade container,
Yes.
or is it just like a random? Okay. So, all right. So, like I said, we're picking up on sulfur and stuff like that, sodium, all that kind of stuff in your RODI water, which there's either two reasons: either the filters are dirty, or you're getting cross-contamination from another source,
Right.
Mixing salt and stuff like that. So, are you having any kind of algae issues in the tank? Are you having any polyp retraction, anything?
No.
No? Okay.
No algae at all. I mean, besides a little bit on the glass over about a week
Okay.
of time.
Yeah, so I am seeing some metals in here too. What I would do is, how often are you doing ICP tests?
That's the first one I've done. I used to do ATI, but they stopped doing tests now.
ATI stopped?
Or, who was
Or
it?
maybe it's the other one. I mean, I was like, I just ordered an ATI. I'm like, oh, I hope they didn't stop, man. I'm going to be in trouble. But, okay, so
ICP.
my point...
Yeah,
ICP, okay.
Yeah.
So my point is before we make any kind of major changes to your RODI unit or the mixing barrel or anything like that, let's give it another 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
And do another ICP test to see if these elements are showing up. Like, I mean, yes, you do have some metals in there that are, aren't going to be good in the long run. But again, if it's just kind of coming over from there. Now, question, I guess, before we keep going, your RO membrane, when was the last time you swapped that out?
I want to say probably 8 months ago.
Okay, so you're still within roughly the year or so that's not going to be an issue.
I still have I have a brand new one downstairs ready to go.
And you are also doing the water filtration system off the house before you
Yes.
even get into that, right? So, okay. All right. So I'm still, with that being said, I'm leaning towards there being some cross-contamination because it was your previous mixing barrel. So I'm going to stick with that, but let's verify in like 6 months when you do another ICP test. If these numbers are still at this range, then, or even higher, without you doing like a saltwater or anything with that barrel, then we need to look into the RO system. Okay, or anything outside of that. The only reason why I dive into RO water is because when you're starting to get into the SPS, these heavy metals and extra things that can come through RODI, which normally could be fine for a lot of soft corals and leathers and stuff like that don't really mind. But once you get into SPS, you have to make sure you're not getting any kind of anything like that in the tank because they just don't tolerate it.
Yeah. I mean, most of my sticks, their polyps are extended fully.
Okay.
They're happy, they not growing.
They're not growing. Okay.
That's why I just turned off my calcium reactor 4 days ago. But with that test, and my calcium alkalinity's been staying around 10.7, and calcium,
With it completely off.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Now-
no, that's what it was on. So I turned it off. Now it's
Okay.
down to like 10.1.
And that was how many days ago?
4 days ago.
4 days ago. Okay, so your uptake really isn't that a lot.
Yeah.
Now I can't see the tank. Like I get a pretty good idea of it from here, but if you were to say how many sticks are in that tank now compared to the because I see a lot of soft coral.
Well, I got an outbreak of canyon tree that I just kind of let sit there.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2.
And you have one on the back wall too. I could see like a plating or something like that.
10 altogether.
Okay, so up until the point where you turn off the calcium reactor 4 days ago, what was the uptake like? What was your alkalinity like? Did your alkalinity slowly start increasing over the last few weeks or months?
It's always been high.
It's always been high? Okay. All right, so you must just be overdosing, or not overdosing, but dosing a higher amount in general. What I would do is let that get down to about 8.5, and then you can either kick the calcium reactor back on at that point, but keep it at a lower effluent rate or a higher pH, and then keep it around that level. Just because if you're at that higher 10 level, again, we're looking at between 7 and 12 DKH acceptable range. So if you're at a higher end there, it's a little bit extra stress on the coral, and we don't have much room for error. So I would let that come down to 8.5, and then kick it back on, but just
a good range, like for the pH for calcium reactors.
Well, it depends on the media. And if your pH probe is calibrated, like for example, my pH probe downstairs is like 30 points off. So it's different, but it's all going to be based on the media itself. A good starting range for most media is 6.7 to 6.8, even up to 6.9. You best to start higher and then work your way down, right, to increase the potency.
Yeah.
And then just go from there. But you obviously have a range that it's in now. So what is it at right now?
What this has been off 7.7.
I mean, when it is on, what range does your pH? Do you keep it at?
Which I'm trying to bring it up because I don't remember now. I'm trying to look through Apex.
I'm gonna look through your ICP test while you're going through that, if you don't mind. See if there's anything else that stands out.
So I was running 6.5 to 7.
To 7. Okay, so that's a pretty big range when it comes to the calcium reactor. Me personally, I will run it. Let's just say example. So it'd be like 6.5 to 6.55, like that very small increment of change, right? So I wouldn't necessarily do that big of a fluctuation.
Okay.
You can bring it down a little bit, but since 6.5 is where you're having the higher alkalinity, maybe bump it up to like 6.7,
Okay.
6.8, one of those, and kind of see where you're starting at, and then you can adjust down if needed. It's better just to start high in general, just to kind of see how the tank reacts. Now, the reason why I ask all that is because has there been a trend with the tank over the last month or so where your alkalinity is slowly going up, but coral growth has just kind of stopped?
No, I mean the corals. My mushrooms they pop babies probably every week.
They're still going, okay. I guess I'm more or less talking about SPS wise, since that's kind of what we're trying to get. So, do you have like any kind of white tips on there? Any kind of indication of growth?
I mean, 1, 2, 3. I have 2 that I have got from you that both have white tips.
Okay.
And the 2 green, I think the green slimers I got from you, they both have white tips.
Okay. Is that a Monty cap at the top right there in the back? Is that a cap of some sort?
This one right here?
At the very top on the back wall.
Oh, up there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's the rim of that? Is it white?
No, he's bright green.
Bright green. Okay, I'm just saying white as in indicating growth. That's the only reason why I asked. Okay, so as for your light settings, can you give me approximately, are you running like mostly blue with a little bit of white? I mean, what do you got going on there?
So I start at about 9:30 in the morning.
Okay.
The blue is at 5%, so when it ramps up to 10 o'clock, purple blue is 100%, green is 50, white's 50.
White's 50, okay.
At 29% intensity.
Okay, and you like the look of the more white? I mean, it's real personal preference at that point, but do you like that whiter look of the tank?
No, I just made it white now, just so you can see.
I'm saying during your growth, like during your normal schedule, do you like that higher white? Most people don't run their white at 50%. A lot of people stick around that AB plus spectrum, which is like 100% blue, violet, ultraviolet, all that kind of stuff, and then they keep their whites and their cool whites around 25 to 35%, and then the red and greens usually are like 8 to 10%. That's usually the common AB plus spectrum, which I've been running for, I don't know, since the 125. I usually stick around those levels. I only ask because there is a personal preference at some point of what you like.
When I set these up, all I did was click on their presets, which is the Neptune Sky, and that's what it came out to be.
Okay, it came up to that. Okay.
They do have an AB plus on here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, AB plus is more mine, especially for growing Acropora and SPS in general. That's kind of a personal preference. But what you have right now isn't really that far off from AB plus.
Right.
But I mean, in the spirit of trying new things,
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to really piss your I mean, your SPS. I mean, your soft corals might be mad for a couple days, but you're not going to, you know, like I said, it's not that drastic. So, with that being said, let's go to move into nutrients. Let me scroll down here.
That's where I'm having a big problem.
Okay, I'm getting down here. Nitrates is measuring 45. Is that what I'm seeing here? Okay. Nitrite, that's fine. Phosphates. Total phosphates, 0.3. Silicone, silicate, still showing some of that in there. It could be from the food. Before we get into the nutrient stuff, what are you feeding and how often are you feeding it?
I have automatic feeder once a day for pellets.
Okay. What are the pellets?
They are new gen.
Okay. Right off the bat, I'm a little biased when it comes to pellets and fresh food and all that stuff. I mean, I'm probably grouched about it a few times on a video, but pellets are really nutrient dense. You're sitting at 45 nitrates right now, and you're auto feeding pellets. Yeah, the fish are going to be happy about it, you know, yada yada yada. But they're really nutrient dense. They might not get them all. That stuff's going to break down. I personally, until you get those nitrates down to more acceptable range, like 7 to 15 ppm, I would dump the pellets. Like, I wouldn't use pellets. I would do more of like a frozen mysis, some kind of rods food. Make your own fish food. I have a bunch of videos on that. So making your own stuff. Yeah. So I would do more of that type of food.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I feed them 2 different kinds of rods food and my shrimp.
Okay.
I have a 11-inch shark in here, so I feed him 3 days a week with those guys. And
oh, you have a shark in there as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is kind of where we're going to get into tank setup in general. So yes, you have to. It sounds like you have to feed a lot to keep the shark happy, keep the fish happy in general, right?
Yes.
So there's going to be a fine line between what kind of tank you can have, because I guess you could technically go to feeding that kind of food that we talked about before and get rid of the pellets to slowly bring the nutrients down, maybe increase water changes, biopellet reactor, whatever. But the point is if you want to keep those fish happy and you want to keep them feeding them the way you are, I would, we're going to have to find another method for you to get those nitrates down, because your SPS is not going to grow at 45.
Right.
It's just not going to. It will, but it's not going to grow very quickly. It's going to be really dark. It's just not going to be that great. So with that, I would get rid of the pellets.
Okay.
I would change to more of a fresher food and not feed as often. With that, I would also increase your water changes. What are you doing right now, water change wise?
3 gallons a day.
3 gallons. So there's 3 gallons a day. Is there any way that you could implement one of those manual water changes where you're getting in there, siphoning detritus, poop, all that kind of stuff, and removing that from the tank before it breaks down? That's something you could do every other week, kind of thing.
I could try.
Okay.
My work schedule. Sometimes I work 6 days a week, and
yeah,
so it's a little hard.
Okay. I only say that because when we do bigger water changes, you're able to remove a lot more nutrients at one time and then replacing that with fresh water, which will help keep those nutrients down. Now, if you're so let's just say you're not able to do that because of work schedule, which is realistic, right, for everybody. We all got different schedules. So I would increase your daily water change amount, but I would also start implementing something like a biopellet reactor. So you are going to have to add something to aid in this nitrate removal, just because that's high. That's really high. Yeah. And I feel like with that, we're kind of stuck between, we got to keep the shark happy and the other fish happy, but we also have to get the nutrients down enough so your corals will be happy, or at least your SPS. I mean, soft corals will live all day in 45 and have no issues. So that's something that you should consider. And I mean, I did a couple videos on biopellet reactors. You're gonna have to start slow, make sure there's enough flow. There's a lot of information out there, and we can dive into it later if you want. So I would consider doing that, because that's gonna uptake the majority of your nitrates. Okay. And have the output of the biopellet reactor. Again, I have some videos into your skimmer to help skim off some of that stuff. You're gonna have to keep an eye on your pumps and just kind of general maintenance with the biopellet reactor. So I wouldn't dose any other chemical to lower nitrates. I think that's a bad idea. I think using natural sources like bacteria might be the best option. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. Like, I wasn't aware coming into this that you had a shark and that there needed to be this much feeding and stuff like that, and that the big water changes aren't an option. So most of the time I don't move into using something like a biopellet reactor if other methods are easier to do,
Yeah.
like the water changes and stuff. So yeah, I think that's going to be, I think that'd be a good piece of equipment to add to this setup given your current routine.
So from 3 gallons a day, well, how high should I go? Like 5?
I mean, 5, 6, 10. I mean, right now 45 is no joke. I mean, you would have to do, you would do
right now, so I have to try to MP, which is from that test, and when I sent it out, it was about 9 off. Right now, it's down to 32.
32, okay, which is still pretty significant, but again, it's nothing that we can't fix. So I would bump it up to 5,
Okay.
6 gallons a day. If you want to go to 10, you can. I know that's a lot, but there is going to be a point where you're doing water changes, and the amount of water changes, or sorry, the amount of salt that you're spending money on, and the benefit that it's giving the tank, removing nutrients, that kind of stuff, isn't justified. So that's where those bigger water changes come in.
Right.
You know, you're going to remove more with the bigger water changes. So if you can, I would add a 30% or a 40% manual water change once a month.
Okay.
I mean, if you can, just because that's gonna pull out a ton of that extra stuff, that detritus, all those pockets that you can't get to because the auto water change doesn't have access to detritus. It just doesn't, right? So, and I'm sure that shark is dropping bombs in there. You know what I mean? After it's eaten. So, yeah. So, and I know that you want to grow SPS, so we just have to get you into a range and then keep it consistent, and then the SPS will grow.
Right.
We just got to tackle that source. And I think a biopellet reactor with an additional water change is going to be your best bet. You can do I don't know, I'm not really sure about your budget, but you can do DIY biopellet reactors with 2 Little Fishies, and they have their own brand, and you can do a bunch of stuff like that. So I would definitely consider that.
Okay.
As for your phosphates, they're not horrible. I wouldn't be, I mean, they're still high, but they're not horrible, like horrible high. That's going to come down with your water changes. I would stay away from a lot of plant-based foods. So if you're putting nori in there, try to stay away from it. There's going to be a ton. You do?
I feed on nori 2 times a week.
Okay.
It's on Sunday and Friday.
So I would maybe cut the nori out completely, or cut it in half or 1/3. And then when it comes to phosphates, there's a ton of phosphates in dry food. I just got a 10-minute warning on the Zoom, by the way. So just a heads up, we might get booted and then we'll come back. So so the phosphates are going to be pretty heavily compacted into that dry food. So removing that would be fine. Now, nutrient export wise, do you have the ability to add a refugium? I don't know if we talked about that.
I just added a new sump, a bigger sump. So I went to Sinai Reef and got a 72-inch sump to hold 2 Reefmat 1200s, and I have the MaxBet Jump 800 skimmer.
Yeah. Okay.
And 2 pumps running it with I think it's 15 watt UV.
Okay. So basically, there is no room for a refugium, essentially.
If I can get away with 1200, yeah, I can make one spot for.
Okay. Okay, so also the external refugiums, like through Geo's Reef, that kind of stuff, they have the external Chaeto reactors. Those are really good as well, if that's an option, if you have room for that kind of stuff. Again, that's another piece of equipment, another expense. But the point is, if you can add macroalgae into the mix, it's really going to uptake a lot of that nutrients, and you might even be able to sell to the fish store to get fish food in general, that kind of stuff. So, or buddies. So implementing a natural source of removing the nitrates and phosphates, maybe doing a little bit more of a wet skim on your skimmer will help pull out some of that extra stuff as well. At this point, just trying to get out as much as we possibly can. That's kind of outside of big water changes, because those aren't necessarily the option. Let me pull your ICP test back up over here so I can look at it. Yeah. And you said you're dosing acro power?
Yes.
Okay. So I do see that you are missing some, some major elements when it comes to growing corals. So, but with that, I feel that if I even had you start dosing like Refuel or Reef Plus or something like that right now, it wouldn't really matter because the nutrients are so high that the corals aren't uptaking it anyways. It'd be kind of like just putting it in there for no reason. So yeah, the acro power is good, that's fine and all that stuff, but like Refuel, where you can get the aminos or not the aminos, but the fatty acids and all the other elements that help aid in coral growth. That is something you can start if you so choose.
Right.
But I would focus more on getting the nitrates down before investing money in supplementation of coral that probably won't use it at this point.
How big of the chamber would I need to run bio pellets? This is a total volume would be 400 gallons.
400 gallons. Okay. I'm just from my DIY perspective, the Two Little Fishies 550 reactor would be perfectly fine. That would, if you modify that, put the bio pellets on the bottom. Start off with 1/3 the recommended amount of bio pellets for your tank, and then over the next few weeks add up to the recommended amount, and then of course top off every once in a while, right? So make a little. So what you'll do is once you get to the point where you have the recommended amount in your reactor, turn off the reactor, use a little marker right on, do a little line, right? Like if you're doing an ATO fill line, and then over when you're doing water changes or whatever the next few months, just double check, turn off the reactor. Oh, it's below, so I'm going to top off a little bit. That way it stays consistent because they're going to shrink and kind of dissipate over time. So you want to make sure they stay topped off. So the Two Little Fishies 550 reactor would be fine. You modify that, throw a MaxiJet on there with a little ball valve to adjust the flow so you can make sure it tumbles but doesn't shoot them all over the place.
Right.
And then have the return or the output of that going into your skimmer or as close to the skimmer input. Like you could just zip tie that tube right to where the input of the skimmer is, and it will pull in that water and help siphon or help skim off some of that dying bacteria, right? So it doesn't get all over your pumps as bad. But that's, like I said, that's a good start. That's probably your cheapest option, DIY. Plus you can hang it on the side of your sump as well. And then just, have the tubes running back in, you'll be fine. So I think that's the cheapest option to try. And, down the road, if it's working well for you and you want to upgrade, then you can spend the money on that, some of that Reef Octopus, some of that more expensive stuff.
Right.
But I would do that. And I believe BRS still sells bio pellets. I haven't used a bio pellet reactor since the 125, so it's been a little while. So, yeah, I'm just looking through here. As for the open this up. So as for the dosing Refuel and stuff like that, personally I would hold off just because let's just get the nutrients, let's get the nitrates under 20.
Okay.
And then you can start dosing it. If you can get them at 10 and keep them at 10, then you'd be good to go. So at this point you're just kind of looking, there's just a fine line or a balance that you're going to have to work on using the biopellet reactor on top of your additional water, not feeding as much, slowly bringing those nutrients down, and then once it stabilizes, then you can kind of move in another direction. So
yeah, I just did the automatic pellet just in case, if I went on vacation or I got busy at work and I forgot to feed them, they stay fed.
Okay.
So yeah, I can cut that out, no problem.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, fish don't really need to eat as much as people think. They fool you, like with all up in the tank. Feed me every time they see you. They don't need that much food. But I don't know. I never had a shark personally, so that might be different metabolism wise. I'm not really sure on that.
Yeah,
so
usually he eats about one medium shrimp every other day. That's about it.
Oh, okay. And he's not eating any of your fish, so.
Yeah, that's when I feed the fish the rod's foods.
Okay. Still recording, so I think we're good. Okay, so I forgot what we were talking about now that we fixed that.
We just finished up talking about the DIY way of doing bio pellets.
Okay, yeah. So do you have any questions about the biopellet reactor or anything like that, or you feel pretty confident?
Yeah, I used to do it a long time ago. This tank's only a year old, but everything came from an older tank that been running for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
One time I ran a small bio pellet at one time, So yeah, it won't
What
be
was
hard.
did it work pretty decent for you or
Yeah,
okay? Okay, yeah. Um,
I
yeah.
just
Let's
didn't
see here.
know being way bigger, 'cause mine was on 180, how much I would need to get it up there.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, when it comes to the biopellet reactor, just start with like one third the amount of biopellets, and then slowly add over the next month or so, and then just top off. Once you
But
get it stable with the proper flow, the good tumbling flow, all that stuff, it really does work pretty well.
okay.
So going through the ICP test, is there anything on this that stood out that we missed? Because I want to make sure we're covering the entire
Mostly just
basis.
nutrients and
The lack of elements.
how important is like the calcium? 'Cause my calcium always runs high.
So I'm trying to find that on here for
Right
whatever
now I'm
reason.
running at 520.
Yeah, 5 times. Okay, so I mean, I'll be honest with you. The only reason why I know I have calcium in my tank is because of my Trident. I don't care about calcium levels as long as your magnesium is in an appropriate range, 1350 to 1450 kind of thing, even up to 1500. You're fine. It's the alkalinity that's the most important, the
Right.
stability of the alkalinity. So yes, the range matters. Like I said before, if you're too low on the spectrum or too high, you don't have that leeway of, oh no, I made a mistake, right? So that 8.5, 9 is pretty common for most people with SPS tanks. And keeping it stable, that's the key. And you have a calcium reactor already, so you already have the ability to keep it really stable. We just got to dial it in once you get down to that point. And then, of course, you have two Tridents, so one's testing the main or those other levels. So I do see that your calcium. I just had it here a second ago. I must be losing my mind. I swear I just had your. I just looked at it. I must have clicked past it. Huh. Okay. You said your calcium was at
520 right now.
520 in it, right? Okay, right here I found it. So I have 517 on this test, 1487 for magnesium, which is that's within range. It's not a big deal. And then is your alkalinity on here? I don't see it under the list. I see strontium, but I don't see, unless I'm, like I said, this is the first time looking at this ICP test, so I'm trying to.
Yeah, it's at the top on basic physical chemical values. The DPH is 11.1.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I see it there. Okay, hardness. Okay. And like you said, you were bringing that down from 10.7. You're at what, 10.1 now? Something like that?
10.2.
10.2. Okay. So yeah, continue to let that come down to 8.5. With that, you'll have less stress with the corals in general. So as for answering your question about calcium, yeah, you can test it. A good indication that your maybe another element might be off, like your magnesium, is if you're getting wonky numbers with your, like 320 calcium for whatever reason, kind of stuff like that, 280 kind of calcium. Then you might be looking at your magnesium going, what's going on here? So outside of your magnesium being in the right range and your alkalinity being where you want it to be and stable, I personally don't care about calcium. It just, I mean,
Just because you run a calcium reactor, it's going to stay pretty much stable.
yeah, because as the calcium reactor, dissolves that media, it's releasing equal parts of calcium alkalinity into the tank, right?
Yeah.
And then if you can add your magnesium chips if you want as well. But usually 99.9% of the time, as long as your alkalinity is stable and in the range you want, you don't have to worry about your calcium.
Okay.
Unless your magnesium is wonky, like 1100 ppm, or vice versa, 2000 ppm. So that's when you're going to have those weird fluctuations and odd numbers on your calcium. So
Okay.
and precipitation, you'll see all that stuff in the sump too. Yeah, I mean, kind of dove through most of this. I mean, the big takeaway from today is getting that nitrates down in the methods that we talked about.
Yeah.
Once that is done, then you could kind of do what you got to do with the tank. You can add whatever SPS you want. Like I said before, making sure your par is also where it should be. That's gonna play a big role in if the coral's growing the way it should.
So
Now,
what's the average sticks usually want on par?
okay, so when it comes to par, for me, I get the best growth for SPS around 350 to 450. That's like the sweet spot in my reef tank. But again, every reef tank's different. You're going to have different flow, different lights, different spectrums. That kind of stuff is all going to impact, plus different nutrients, all that, right?
Right.
But 99% of the time, I say this, I keep saying 99% of the time, but most of the time, anything above 250 and under 600 is usually safe.
Okay.
Usually safe for most SPS. Now you'll find that you'll get some of these smooth skin torts and stuff like that that really don't like a lot of light. Every coral is a little bit different, but if you're just talking about regular staghorns, ATL blue clovers, green slimers, just your general rainbow, PC rainbow, stuff like that, that 400 range, it's good to go.
Okay.
But what's good is, say you set up, so let's just talk about par in your reef tank. So let's say you test your par, the very top of your rock structure should be that 450, 500, right? At the top of that rock structure. You can come down a little lower if you want to do like 350, that's fine, as long as you're within that range, right?
Yeah.
And as the coral grows, it's going to kind of acclimate itself to even higher par numbers, and this still grows just as fine, right? So I know before I overhauled the 300 the first time, the top of the rock structure was 500, and the coral was growing out of the tank at 1,000 par, but it was still alive, right? I didn't just jump into that. So there's so much flux, there's so many different ranges that the coral can be in, but staying safe at that, anything above 250 for SPS, stay around the 400 range if you're just kind of mid tank, and let the corals grow into that higher par.
Right.
And that's usually pretty safe. So
Okay.
just looking over here, pull over the ICP test again. I guess my only other thing that, like we talked about before, is just the RO water. Making sure that when we do the ICP test, again, I mean, what you could do if you wanted to weed out this now instead of waiting, and you don't have to, but you could always make some water and have it dump into a completely different bin and do an ICP test on that.
Yeah.
Whatever financial you got going on wise. I mean, I know ICP tests are like, what, $50 a pop at this point. So not everybody's doing them every week because you just did one. So, but what you could do is just dump it into a regular container that's never had anything in it, and then quickly take it out and send it out and see what you got. That right there will tell you right now if you're getting any of these issues from that barrel. And the thing is, if it's just in the barrel and you're having the issue, who cares? If the water that's coming in is fine and clean and it just happens to get some calcium when it's in the barrel, who cares, right? As long as the source water is fine, that barrel will figure itself out.
Now, if it comes through the source, how do you take care of that?
Okay, so let's just do a hypothetical. Let's say that your source water comes back and you have, potassium, sulfur, sodium, God forbid the lid, zinc. Say you have zinc right now at 6.34. Your source water comes back with zinc in it. That means your RO membrane, your carbon blocks need to be changed.
Okay.
And then, as with everything, most people don't find issues. A lot of people aren't doing ICP tests, so a lot of people aren't finding these issues until they compound to bigger problems. They start seeing it in their tank. Right now, you're not seeing it in your tank. Algae-wise, you might be suffering a little bit of coral growth if that is part of the problem. But doing these ICP tests consistently once every 6 months, you're going to be able to find this issue relatively quickly. So I would say if you do that test tomorrow and it comes back and you're still at 6 zinc, or like I said, potassium, calcium, all that stuff comes back from the source water alone, then you need to replace the RO membrane and also your carbon blocks.
Okay.
Outside of that, check your DI, make sure your DI isn't expired. Is it color changing or
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think this is probably a little bit past quarter way up.
Okay. One thing I mentioned, and I know that a lot of people don't know this, but I think BRS put a video on this a while ago too, is don't wait until the DI is completely exhausted, because then you're going to dump some of that stuff into your water. Just change it out about a half an inch to an inch before it gets to the top. That's pretty safe. And then TDS meters. TDS meters are great. They give you a rough idea, but I wouldn't rely on a TDS meter when it comes to the DI. It's just not picking up on everything. So just make sure you change it before it's completely exhausted.
Okay.
And I'd be interested to see, when you do these tests again, let me know. I'd be interested to see, maybe even do a follow-up and kind of see what you're looking at wise on that. But other than that, is there anything that, we got some time to burn still. We still got like 10 minutes or so. So is there anything that or even a little bit longer, that you wanted to go over while we have this going here?
I always watched a lot of different videos, and a lot of people do bare bottoms now.
Mm-hmm.
So I average 3 to 4 inch sand bottom. What's the best way for flow? So right now, one end I have a J-Bow Gyre 150,
Mm-hmm.
Neptune on one end, and I got 2 J-Bow 8s on each side back wall.
Okay. So what's the question? Like,
all
what
of them are about half speed.
So what's the question? Like, how to get the most flow without messing up the sand bed?
I mean everything moves, but not strong. I mean, not enough for SPS.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of flow. I mean, I can even see the soft corals moving from here. So, I mean, there's definitely flow. If you were, go look at one of your, it's blue for me on this end, but if you go look at one of the SPS that are in there now, as long as you have polyp extension and that stuff's moving, you're fine. Okay. It doesn't have to be blasting. And again, there is a fine line between a sanded and a bare bottom tank when it comes to flow. You're not going to be able to put, 40,000 gallons per hour in it. You just can't, right? And you don't want to remove the sand because that shark probably not going to be too happy. Plus, given that it's 3 to 4 inches, the tank's already established. Removing that much sand from that tank, you're probably gonna. I wouldn't say it crashed the tank, but it's definitely gonna piss everything off. Just because all that sand has that natural denitrifying bacteria, especially when you get over 1 inch or 2 inches, and then all the beneficial bacteria that live on that, right? So, I definitely wouldn't remove it. Just in case you were thinking about it, I don't think you are, but I wouldn't remove it. I think you got plenty of flow as long as the current SPS in there are looking fine. Like I said, I can see your soft corals moving even from here, so I wouldn't. I think you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing maybe down the road, let's say you're growing you got a softball-sized colony of bird's nest in it or another acro, and it seems very brittle. That could be an indication that you just have not enough flow to build up that strength, but that's not something you need to worry about right now.
Yeah, main focus is working on the nitrates.
Yeah, nitrates are they're up there, man. And listen, I'll tell you, a lot of people come on here and they're like, man, my tank is really bad now. Trust me, I got some stories, man. I've done hundreds of these calls, and I've seen some stuff. I can't actually say because they might still be watching. So, I've seen some stuff like foot-long hair algae just chilling. And it come to find out it wasn't the guy's fault. It was actually the rock that he got in. Man, did that not only set him back financially just for all that, but foot-long hair algae, man, you got some you got some excess nutrients. But he had some great flow because that stuff was moving, I'll tell you what. But yeah, your tank is definitely not the worst. You got a lot going on. I tell you got a lot of fish in there. The shark alone in a tank, the fact that you're keeping it in there and successfully at that with the nutrients not being higher than when they are. I know they're at 45, but I've seen tanks with less and more nitrates. That makes sense. So I think you're doing pretty good. Your sump is busy. It's got a lot going on. But I do think the additional biopellet reactor is going to be good for you and come back on the getting. I'll tell you right now, getting rid of that dry food or that pellet food alone, that might just solve the issue. Depending on how much is being dumped in there. I'd be interested. Like, give me an update. I'd be interested to see what this is. Is like.
I'll do it. Yeah, definitely. Probably say a month.
Yeah. I think we got 15 minutes left, anyways. So we could call it now and then just use the 15 minutes later without you having to pay for anything.
Oh, that's no problem. It just,
yeah.
Like I said, I always watch your videos and you do a lot of DIY stuff, so.
Yeah, but I definitely want to do an update on this. It doesn't have to be horribly long. Like I said, we can use the additional time next time, and just go over the ICP test again and kind of see what's changed. I think that would be good just for people in general. But yeah, overall you're good. If you want to buy and use like refuel, go ahead. You don't have to though.
Well, yeah, I got the 1 gallon is about halfway, and I got 2 more gallons of AquaPower still sitting here ready to go.
Yeah, AquaPower, man, that's some good stuff. I actually got to order some more of that. I ran out last week. It's on my little to-do list.
I got going downstairs. Sale on Prime Day. Gallon was down to $51.
Okay. That's not bad. Yeah, that's about wholesale price, I think, or around 50. You said 52.
50, yeah, it was like 51, 52, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's about. I think that's about wholesale price. So they're still making money on it too. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's good. Cool, man. Well, I'm just looking over. I think we're good. Is there anything else you have for me?
Oh, no, everything else. I mean,
Okay.
everything runs fine. Everything looks good. Just I'm shocked with the nitrates being the way they are, and everything looks good.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like these soft corals they're gonna thrive in that stuff. It's just when you put in those a little bit harder SPS and some
Right.
LPS, that's when you start realizing like, oh, maybe I should run an ICP test to see what's going on, and that's just where you're at now. The problem you have is easy to fix. We just got to find the source and then implement a couple solutions. And like I said, you like DIY, so that DIY Phosphan, I mean, I'm not really sure what they cost right now, but even if you did the smaller version of it, maybe you probably don't even need the 550. You can do the smaller one, and you'd be fine with that as well.
I'm trying to think. I have two small, kind of like the BRS RO containers, but I got my Home Depot for like the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't use them more. I'm just wondering if I can turn that into a bio pallet reactor.
Well, when it comes to the biopellet reactor, as long as you have the flow going down to the bottom, coming up through the biopellets and rumbling at the surface, and as long as they're moving,
Right.
I don't think it matters what the container is, personally. As long as it's reef safe, it's not going to leach anything, all that normal stuff. I think you're fine with that. And yeah, as long as they're all tumbling, all of them, you don't want a huge container, but a small one, being able to do that. And again, you want to send the flow down to the bottom, up through the media, and let it tumble at the top. So as long as that's there, I don't really think the container matters so much.
Yeah, I might tinker with that. I start my vacation today, so I might tinker with that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Send me some pictures too to keep me updated. I'd be willing to help you out with it, whatever you need. I think I have a couple videos on the 125 with the reactor itself. So
Yeah, I think you did. I have to go back and look.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. It's like one of my first videos, I think. It's been a while. So cool, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on with me and then let me record this stuff. Appreciate that. And we're gonna save some of the time. We'll come back and we'll do an update in a month. Just reach out to me and just remind me, because you know me, right? I get lost just day-to-day stuff. So hit me up and then we'll knock it out, man.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Hey, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Right.
Keep up
Thanks.
the good videos.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.